What's up, guys? So I want to talk about type 8s, their inner workings and overall attitude to feel like stuff you hear on the fucking internet, like them being scared of being controlled, fear of fucking being harmed, vulnerability, being scared of fucking vulnerability, and all so on and so forth. Now, obviously, I was watching some like YouTube videos on like Enneagram 8, and I'm like, fuck, I'm cringing, I'm dying inside a bit. And then there's this guy who's being interviewed. My dude looks straight up like he just left the fucking cosplay of fucking Black Panther, like straight up Black Panther cosplay. Good for him though. He really did rock the fucking look. But he's a mistyped 7. So I'm kind of listening to him, and I'm like, you're a nice guy. Like you're nice. But why do you think you're an 8? And people do talk about the fucking aspect of vulnerability, and I'm like, that's not even how to really that's not that's not even anti-vulnerability. That's just you using like you hating vulnerability. That's not the same thing. Okay, that's not the same thing that 8s struggle with. So I want to make a fucking video on that. Let's fucking get into it. So to understand all of that, you need to understand the foundation of the psyche of an 8. And I'm gonna use an example for that. If you work out a lot, pull ups, anything, a lot, spend many hours doing it, you will realize your skin will have a buildup of calluses. Okay, and this buildup of additional this callus skin is hard. It's very hard, right? And it makes it so that now your skin doesn't tear up as easily. It's more insensitive, and that is kind of how you describe the inner world of an 8. It is insensitive. Okay, it is callous. The inner world of an 8, the mind of an 8, the psyche is callous. Now, meaning that it takes more for them to experience those emotions, to experience the emotional stimuli that might bother everyone else, but for them it won't even register. So the threshold is much higher, meaning that the 8 is not a sensitive person. They're not sensitive people. So they don't cry easily. They don't get moved by empathy easily. They don't get scared easily. Basically, every single emotion, with exception of anger, there's just not enough of it, and that's the mentality. It takes more to trigger the response because of the hardened nature of the world. Now, this insensitivity, as you know, we often think, oh, the 8s um, mean to other people, the 8 is insensitive to other people, but the reality is also that the 8 is insensitive to itself. The 8 has no regard for its own emotional fucking internal life at all, and it does not tolerate weakness. And the way it shows itself is that the 8 will never look at himself as a victim. That's another thing. The 8 is not the oppressed, they're the oppressor. The 8's not the victim, they're the aggressor. They're not the one being pushed around, they're the one doing the pushing. That's the mentality of an 8. They never see themselves in a position of being a victim. Oh, something's unfair. Oh my god, yeah, I can handle it. They can't. They can't. They just cannot do that. Which is almost leads to this grandiose self-perception, delusional self-perception, which then leads to self-destruction. Simple as, right? Self-destruction. An example of this is like Conor McGregor, absolutely refusing to back down, refusing to when he should have, you know, and that's kind of how it starts. You refuse to fucking back down. You get fucked up. You get choked out. You you see yourself as this person who can take on the world, and then it bites you in your ass. So that's important to understand. So this insensitivity is also aimed towards them, because remember, Santa Claus didn't come in and be like, "Hey, put your inner child away in the closet. It's time." No, 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 no. It was the 8 who's like, "Kick the fucking inner child, get the fuck in the closet, my nigga. Like, bye." And that's kind of how it's happened. It's the 8 itself. Now, since we kind of talked about the callousness, in the callousness of type 8, this relates to the concept of vulnerability. This relates to the concept because there's this concept of also mechanism of denial, which really helps all of it to make it so. Now, there are many, I want to touch on this, there are many types that will experience denial, that will experience dislike for vulnerability. 1s, 3s, 6s, 9s can fucking experience it, 5s can experience it. So you will see that. it doesn't really mean that they're 8s. Okay? Because many people hate vulnerability. Doesn't mean shit. Now, so what's the difference between normal fucking person like a 3 or a 6 vulnerability against 8's dislike of vulnerability? Well, they're all conscious of vulnerability. They are all aware that it exists and they're fighting against it. Stop fucking flickering. Anyway, so with an 8, they're not aware that it exists. Big difference. You see? Stop. With an 8, is they are not aware that it exists. As I was fucking saying, because this shit ain't gonna let me say it. Anyway, it's denied from the consciousness of the 8. It's denied from their fucking conscious level of awareness. They're not aware of it. So the way it shows and maybe manifests in behavior, you might see someone complaining, the cat died, fucking the person's like something happened to them, something really fucked up, clearly should have shaken them up, and they will not be like, oh yeah, this shook me up. They will still act like, hey, yeah, shit happens, people fucking move on, whatever, even though it should have fucked them up, like fucking like some long-term relationship going to shit, then breaking up, death of a loved one, for example. They won't be like, yeah, it fucked me up, I'm like so sad about, yeah, I just want to, no. They're like, yeah, whatever, like fucking people die, oh well, yeah. And that's the mentality that they will, obviously it might affect them, but they're just not aware of it. It's pushed out from the conscious level. Now with other types, they're aware of it. As I said, they're pushing it around, pushing it back. They want to vent. Now, I've noticed whenever you ask an 8, and this is how you really spot it, hey, maybe you should open up, like be more vulnerable. They will literally every single time look at you deep in your eyes and think, and say, yes, but sure, that would be nice, but how do I do that? Like, what's there to open up about? There's nothing. And that is the true mark of an 8, in my opinion, from everything I've seen, people I've known, in myself. It is that vulnerability is not accessible, and you are not aware it exists in the first place. So when someone tells you open up, and you're like, yeah, but what the fuck do I open up about? There's nothing. While obviously many people do have their struggles and they want to open up, they're dying to open up, they want to vent. It's just that they want to feel safe and secure, and that's not the case for an 8. So this vulnerability thing is gonna be freaking apparent in how they carry themselves. Okay, so remember that the 8s don't care about protecting themselves in the sense of fighting off the vulnerability. They're so focused on lust that trying to fucking fight off vulnerability is not on their radar, because it's automatic process. Okay, and that's why integration into 2 is so difficult, because all of those types are aware that they're vulnerable, that they're pushing it back. All they need to do is to accept the fact that they're vulnerable and accept that it's okay to be vulnerable. Now, with an 8, it's not enough to be like, it's not as easy to be like, oh yeah, I accept I'm vulnerable. Because it's like going into a dark room with no flashlight. You're absolutely in the dark and you don't know what's going on. And you're supposed to look for something. And you're like, yeah, sure, but I'm lost, man. Like, my dude, I'm lost. And that's the same thing here. The 8 has to do the seemingly impossible, to be in touch with his inner self, to be in touch with his softer emotions, to be in touch with his vulnerability, and he doesn't even know where it is. You see why? Or you see why it's so difficult to integrate into 2? Because how do you do something that you cannot see? You cannot even acknowledge. You don't even know that's there. And if I could create a guide for 8s to follow step by step to achieve this state, I would. But the truth is, there's no such easy sequential way to go about it. It's just there's no such thing. Maybe at some point I'm gonna talk about, like, maybe growth, make a separate video for growth, but that's for another time. Anyway, that was a great and important distinction with the attitude to vulnerability. Now, last thing, fear of being hurt and fear of actually two more things: fear of being hurt and fear of being controlled. This is a big one. I hear this plenty. Now, eights are people who, as we already established, are hardened. They're callous, and they have the defense mechanism of denial. So why would a person that thinks you cannot hurt them be afraid or fear of you hurting them on an emotional level? Why would that even be a thing? It doesn't make sense now, does it? Exactly, it fucking doesn't. So eight's not going to be concerned about you hurting them. In fact, there's this weird thing with eights is that even I've talked about this with another user. Like there are certain maybe more conscious pressure points that exist within the eight, but the eight is absolutely not even aware of actually what can break him. The eight is not aware of it. The eight doesn't know. Even if there are more obvious weak points that you can step on and kind of trigger the eight or whatever, those weak points, those pressure points can simply lead to either annoyance or they can be met with deflection. They can be met with dismissal and stuff like that as a way of the eight handling it. Now, with something that is seen as weak in the eight's mind and it's getting in the way of things, the eight, as weird as this sounds, as I talked with this other user, he put it well. I agree with this. He can almost eliminate weakness, and it's fucking weird, right? It sounds like some Superman shit. But it ain't. It can almost harden itself against it. He can make it powerless, right? He can develop hardness towards that specific thing that maybe wounded him at some point. It will be met with, again, deflection, again with dismissal, again with, yeah, whatever. And that's how they almost harden constant process of this kind of thing. And it's not like something that happens consciously, it is subconscious. Now, that's when it comes to this fucking fear of being hurt, okay? That's not, I've never met an eight that was scared of being hurt. Like, genuinely never. Because they don't think they can be fucking hurt in the first place. Now, fear of being controlled is a good one. And it's also wrong. It's also wrong. Now, why it's wrong? Because the driving force of an eight, as we all know, is lust. And with lust, the purpose of lust is to do whatever you want. It's to pursue your. Stop fucking. I'm gonna. Is to pursue your desires however you want, without restriction, without people trying to stop you. And that is actually key. Because this fear of being controlled is not just for the sake of control whatsoever. It's not, oh, well, no one can control me. It's like, it's more so that they're trying to fucking restrict you from engaging in your primary drive, which is lust. And that's problematic because now they're restricting you. And like, who do they think they are? Like, they can just go ahead and restrict you of anything? No, 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 no. So that's the mentality that eights might have. Um, so that's really it. That's the fear of being controlled. It's not even fear of being controlled. They're not scared. They just don't accept anyone trying to restrict them. They want freedom. Freedom to engage in lust. Now, last thing, okay? Literally the last thing I'm gonna talk about is power. Fucking stop. Power and seeking control. As I've mentioned before, see this camera. Oh my god, this camera. This camera. Oh my god. I'm trying to be kind to this camera. I'm trying to be sweet. I'm trying to whisper sweet nothings in the camera's ear, and it's not listening to me. So at some point, physical violence might just be the only thing that this camera will respond to. Oh well. I blink and the shit flickers. Like, what is this, man? Anyway, so as I was saying, power and control, and this is based on the fucking, obviously, the example of Silco I used a few days ago. And the character kind of said at some point, like, oh, power is for those who can take it. Some shit like that. He fucking said control, power, something, those keywords, those buzzwords that eights use. And that's kind of what happened. And now, I want to debunk that. Eights don't fucking seek power for the sake of fucking power, nor do they seek control. They are driven by lust, okay? Now, if you are a person who is a control freak and needs to control people and needs to feel in control of its environment, needs to micromanage everything, I have news for you. You're a type 1, you're not a type 8. Because that's a huge difference between both types. And 8, why would 8 want to be busy? like controlling you or controlling anyone the fuck else and spending fucking hours upon hours or micromanaging you. For what? They're lustful individuals. They want to have freedom, right? They want to have freedom to do what they want without restrictions. That's not really aligned with being like a control freak around, does it? That's a way more fitting thing with a one call. So remember that. No, no. Eights don't want to fucking go around controlling people. And power for the sake of fucking power doesn't make sense either. Because again, eights want lust. It's all about lust. So just having power is like, what is it, like an ego thing? That's, to me, that can be like a 1, that can be a 6, that can be a 3. Like, again, you know, again, it has nothing really to do about power. It's about lust. It's about engaging in it's getting that kind of thrill, getting that intensity in your life. That is what they want. Yeah, stop fucking flickering, whatever. So that's it for today, I would say. And if you guys have any questions about type 8 and really like whatever the fuck you want to ask me, go ahead and ask me in the comment section. If you have like anything for like, maybe you disagree with something, no problem. Um, we can discuss it. And yeah, that's it. So stay tuned for another video and see you fucking later.